Hello and welcome back to Crafted by Corie. If you're new, I'm Corie. Welcome to my channel. If you are returning, thank you as always for being here. I am super excited because we've got some Christmas in July projects. So let's go ahead and get right on into the crafting. DIY number one. For this project, I have a Dollar Tree planter, and this is a napkin that I had used last week for another project. I'm going to be using some more, actually the rest of it. This is some backing from some shelf liner that I'm using in lieu of parchment paper, just because I figured why waste it. And I am going to just clean this pot up a little bit. I had used it in another project like last year or the year before, and I kind of took that apart and decided I wanted something new. So here we go. I've got my Adirondack white chalk paint, and I'm going to be giving this one good coat all over. If I can get the chalk paint open. But like I said, just going to give that one good coat of chalk paint. I'm not sure why I'm showing you so much of the leading up to the painting part, but I realized I really am going to be able to need, oh my goodness, I'm going to need to be able to move this to let it dry so that I can continue to craft while this is drying. So I grabbed that board. It's just something I have in my stash for a future project, and I put my project on top of it, moved it over to let it dry. Now I am using my scissors. Because I had used this last week, I had already removed the second ply, and I talked about the fact that I was wishing that I had actually cut it out rather than tearing it. I'll leave a link to last week's video in case you want to see what I was talking about, but essentially I'm cutting super close to these little guys. I'm leaving a little bit of an outline so that they have a bit of definition with what I'm doing. But I cut out all these little guys. I ended up going to the other napkin remnant that I had used last week as well to grab one more little gnome guy and cutting around all of that as well. And then I actually did cut out some of the little Christmas trees that were on there and snowflakes. And now I was showing you my Mod Podge, and I'm going to go ahead and start applying everything to my planter. I'm going to start with the Christmas trees because I figured they could be in the background, and then my intent, and it actually did end up working this way, was to kind of overlap a little bit with the gnomes. So it's like the gnomes are in front of the trees. But I applied that first one, and then I'm going to go to the opposite side so that I am trying to space these out as evenly as possible. And I'll just keep working my way around. I have 4 trees, so I'll do one on either side, and then I'll split the difference and put a couple in the middle there. And then I'll go ahead and apply my gnomes. So you might have noticed that I'm applying some of the Mod Podge first, and then putting the gnome down and applying the Mod Podge over top of the gnome again. And I apologize for the squeaking in the background. We clearly need to put some WD-40 on one of our doors. So, oh goodness. But I just continued to work around the entire planter until it was covered with the trees and the gnomes. And now I'm coming in with those little snowflakes and just placing them randomly. I am now wishing that I had painted the entire inside of the pot, which is something I normally do, but I figured I wasn't going to be able to see that far down, so I just kind of left it. Anyway, the next day, this is how it looks when it's all dry. I had one little spot that I had messed up with the napkin. It got all bunched up and it was ripping, and at any rate, that'll be the back. And now I am grabbing some of these poinsettia picks. It's actually one large pick of poinsettias that I'm kind of manipulating to put down inside the pot. But you can put any kind of arrangement in your planter that you want. And you can use any kind of little Christmas napkins for this too. So I've just got some old grocery bags that I'm tucking down inside of this to help with getting it all situated. I could have used floral foam, but I didn't really think it was necessary. And I just felt like I'd be wasting a lot of floral foam. But let me know what you think of this one. DIY number 2. All right, I have these little ribbons from the Dollar Tree and a whole bunch of pine cones that I've had in my stash for quite some time. I had gotten them for free from somebody who had a whole bunch of them in their yard. This was going back probably, goodness, 5 years ago. So that's how long I've had them. So they've had plenty of time to dry out. But I am taking my little 3/4 inch or 1/2 inch ribbon. I'm not sure. I think it's only 1/2 inch, but tying a whole bunch of little bows with my ribbon. I have 9 pine cones that I'm working with, so I'm going to do 9 little bows. And then in just a moment, I completely ran out of space on my camera card and didn't realize it, so I lost a whole bunch of footage. But actually, that wasn't quite just yet. It'll be towards the end of tying off all these little bows. So right here is basically where that happened. And so you didn't get to see what I did with all these loops. So you can see I've got this other Kirkland ribbon. This is something I pick up from Costco every year. It's awesome. They have beautiful ribbon. But I created loops and I made them all different lengths. So I have ribbons and the loops, I've got the loops going from 12 inches, I would guess 12, 14, 16, 18. Yeah. I mean, I offset them by about 2 inches a piece, and then I glued the ends to the top of each pine cone and applied the little bow on top of that. I just used hot glue for this. And so now I'm going to align the tops of all of my loops and bring them all together. So we're just going to speed things up here a little bit, getting them all together, kind of alternating well, not really alternating, but they're all going to be different lengths, right? So they're all going to hang differently. So I'm kind of trying to mix up the lengths so I don't have them all just going up in order, but a little bit more random. Hopefully that makes sense. So I've got them all gathered at the top. I'm sorry, I'm a little out of frame here, but I'm just trying to figure out how I want to have them lay and where I want to gather them together. And I was trying to decide, how I was going to attach them. And ultimately I decided I was going to just make a little knot here with a separate piece of ribbon that I will have serve as tails. And my thought is I'm going to use those loops up at the top to create a false or a faux bow. Now, I love this idea still. However, I should have tied this off a little higher up because my loops are way too big. So I really need to kind of cut the size of these loops in half. And you can't really see it there because clearly I'm out of frame, but trust me when I say they were just a little too big. I thought about sliding that knot up, and then I just decided I was going to cut my little loops in half, not literally cut them, but as you can see, I'm kind of poking in the middle of each loop. And then I started twisting them off because remember, this is wire ribbon, so you can manipulate it a little bit better than, well, a lot better than with regular ribbon. So I'm just kind of creating this false set of loops by twisting the little bow sections at the middle. Hopefully, I feel like I'm not explaining myself very well right now, but hopefully the picture speaks 1,000 words and you are kind of understanding a little bit better what I'm trying to say. But let me know what you think of this one. DIY number 3. Okay, this is, I think that used to be a candle, or I'm not sure where I got it. It could have come from the Dollar Tree, but I think it was an old candle, from an old candle. I have my olive oil, I have a thing of water there, I've got a bunch of little Christmas doodads that I am going to attempt to use. I had a feeling some of these were going to float in water, and so I wasn't really sure what was going to work. I've got these red glass beads that I knew would clearly sink to the bottom, but I was trying to go with things that were a little bit heavier in hopes that they would sink and not float. So I am going to cut down some of this little evergreen and just try and make sure that it's going to fit in there. I want to make sure that everything is going to remain at least an inch below the top of the vase. That is my goal. I'm probably more like an inch and a half because I want to make sure that it's not going to interfere with what I'm doing at the top of the vase. Now, this is something that I had seen online a few months ago. My goodness, excuse me, I can't stop yawning. I'm always recording this late at night because it's really the only time I have to do my voiceovers, so forgive me. But I'd seen this online a few months ago, and I thought it was such a neat idea. Essentially, we are going to be creating an oil candle. So I've got my little decorations in here, and you can put anything that you want in there as long as it won't float. But I'm filling this up with water. I ran out of water in there, so I had to go get more. I'm leaving about an inch, only filling it so that it comes to about an inch from the top. Now I'm going to start pulling things out that are floating because they're floating big time and sticking up above the water. Yeah. In hindsight, I probably could have left them because we're going to have kind of a barrier that you'll see in a minute. But this is a Dollar Tree candle. It came, I think they were 4 or 5 to a box. They're like emergency candles. And I literally just bent it in half. It was weird because normally candles, in my experience, snap. This one was bending. It was strange, but I was able to break the candle in the middle, and then I just literally pulled the wick out of it. So if you have wicks, you can use them, without having to destroy a candle to get to them. But I then tied a knot in it about an inch from one end. Now I am struggling with this plastic container because I want the base out of there. I finally realized the best way to do it was getting my piercing tool. So I'm poking a bunch of little holes along the edge, kind of all in a row. And that gave me a place where I could stick my scissors in there and cut that out. Just be real careful when you're doing this because you don't want to end up cutting yourself by accident. I was doing things that were not real safe that I didn't include on the camera, but just be careful. So now I'm just trimming down that base, and it ended up being all for naught because I decided to stick it in there and make sure that it was going to float, and it sank immediately. So I was like, oh no. And then, of course, it disrupted everything that had not yet been floating and caused other things to float. So goodness, the struggle is real sometimes, I promise. So I ended up pulling a few other pieces out. And then I went back to my little plastic bottle to see if I could salvage this by using a different piece of it. So the sides of this are a little thinner. So this does end up floating for me. I'll show you in just a second. But it is curved, so I had to kind of work with it and curve it in the opposite direction. And here I'm showing you that it actually is going to float, drying it off. But you just want to make sure you get it as flat as possible. So I placed it on my scissors because I'm trying to poke a hole right in the middle of it. Just making sure my hole is big enough that I can put my wick through it. Now I started putting it up from the bottom and then realized I want to have it drop down from the top. So I want my knot at the top. That's going to keep the wick from falling down into the jar, leaving the tail in the water. And now it's time for my olive oil. So I'm just going to pour my olive oil right over that plastic barrier. And that's why I was saying that I could probably have left some things that were going to float up to the top because they wouldn't have passed that. Now, just for fun, I decided to put some green glitter in the top. My olive oil had a bit of a greenish tinge, but it was really more yellow. So I decided, let's put some green glitter in there. If I had to do it again, would I do it again? I don't know. It's fine, but it does look a little weird to me. So anyway, I went ahead and lit it up, and y'all, I was able to let this burn while I continued to craft for a couple of hours, and it hadn't even made a dent in the olive oil from what I could tell. So I think this would burn for a good long time, and I'm really excited about how it looks. But take a look at the final reveal picture here and let me know what you think of this one. And now it's time for a shout out timeout. Beautiful Amy, these are so sweet. Thank you for sharing. And Pretty Rose, I love your signs always. Thank you so much for sharing with us. I would love to give you a shout out as well. If you have interest, just send me an email at craftedbycorie@gmail.com. DIY number 4. All right, this is a scarf that I used in the last video as well to make this little tree. And I talked about how I wasn't really thrilled with it, and I had another idea for how to make it. So I've got some actually it's not cardstock. Cardstock might have been a little bit easier, I was thinking. So keep that in mind. This is, oh my goodness. I keep wanting to say cardboard. You all know, poster board. There we go. I got it. So first I am using a piece of parchment paper. I'm going to make myself a little pattern. I was struggling with this a little bit. I recommend if you're going to make a pattern for this, just use a piece of computer paper. It'll be easier to manipulate. The parchment paper was just too slick and it didn't want to, it was just giving me a hard time. But I'm basically making a cone and I cut the bottom off and now I'm cutting it right up the middle because I just need one full section of this to create my cone shape. At first I was confused. I was like, oh, did I do it wrong? Do I need 2 of these? And then I realized, nope, I just need the one. And that is my template for my little Christmas tree that I'm gonna make. Now I realized that I wanted to have a little bit more of an edge on it for putting it together, because otherwise my cone was going to be smaller because, you know, of the way that it was cut. I needed an overlap. Hopefully that makes sense. So I just made that one edge a little bit wider, and then I drew the arc, cut it out, and then I'll have my little piece to create my tree with. Now, this is why I was saying that cardstock would probably be easier. It definitely would be easier. It would 100% be easier. The poster board did not want to work. I got it to work. It just took some effort. And I did end up cutting the little point off the top too, if you can see there, so that it wasn't in the way when putting my little piece together. So now I've got my scarf. And I'm trying to figure out how much of it I need. I'm going to just cut off the piece that is going to cover my poster board. And you know what, guys, this ended up being a hot mess. It really was. What I had envisioned in my head, I don't know. I think I probably should have just I should have wrapped the scarf around it and just hot glued it to the inside so that you couldn't see any glue. It would have been covered, but no, I decided to use the Mod Podge, thinking, oh, you know, using Mod Podge and Mod Podge it down. Yeah, because as I started doing this, I was like, oh my goodness, I can't let it dry flat because it'll get crispy. Do you know what I mean? It'll get firm and solid, and then I won't be able to manipulate it. It'll be like stiff as a board, and I won't be able to create my cone shape. I have to create the cone shape while it's wet. My goodness. So anyway, I'm just stretching the scarf over the fabric and just making sure that it is where it needs to be. And now I'm just going to slather this puppy with all kinds of Mod Podge. I had it all over my hands, y'all. I mean, it's going through the fabric. You can probably see it in some places. So at this point, I was just all in. I'm like, okay, here we go. So I'm trying to recreate my cone shape with the Mod Podge on the fabric. Ironically, this actually turned out really good, but it was a mess getting there, and it definitely took some effort. I was a little frustrated with it, but yeah. So again, if I had to do it again, I probably would have done as I just described before. I would have used hot glue to wrap the fabric around and glue it on what would be the inside, and then create my cone without all this Mod Podge. Maybe I'll have to try, maybe third time is the charm. Maybe I'll have to try it one more time in next week's video. I don't know. Let me know if you want me to try one more time with this other idea that I'm telling you about, because now I'm using the hot glue too. I got Mod Podge everywhere. Now I got hot glue, sealing the seam. My goodness. But leave me a comment and let me know if you want me to try the third way that I just described, or if I should just stop beating a dead horse. So now I am going to just Mod Podge this to death. Yeah, I'm trying to seal it down on the inside for the part that is being wrapped around underneath. And then I'm going to give the entire thing a coat of Mod Podge just to make sure that the fabric is all sealed. Make sure it's all uniform, because clearly there was Mod Podge coming through some of it earlier. So I just wanted it to all look the same. And here it is once it was dry the next day. And as you can see, it actually turned out really well, and it's stiff. So I was very glad that I did not let it dry before putting it into the cone shape. But now I've got this little wood round from the Dollar Tree. I'm planning on using it as a base. And I think it's from the Dollar Tree. I said that, but I'm honestly not 100% sure because it's been in my stash for a while. But just going to give it a good sanding because it had a bunch of rough edges on it. And then I painted it with my Crimson chalk paint by Waverly. And once it was dry, I was just making sure that the bottom was dry there too. I am ready to attach it. Now, I was literally going to glue it right on there, but my glue gun had turned off, and so it was having to heat up again, and it wasn't ready, which kind of made me start thinking about other things that I could do. So I ended up grabbing from the Dollar Tree these little ball things. I forget what they're called, and my image as I'm doing this is too small for me to read it on the computer, but they're these little decorative vase filler things. I don't know how else to describe it. And then I also grabbed a dowel, and I'm thinking that the little ball can serve as my trunk, my little decorative trunk. So I'm cutting the dowel, and as I was cutting it to the length that I thought I needed, I was like, you know what, that looks like it might be half. Can you believe it was exactly half? But anyway, I don't know, things like that make me happy. So I am just testing that this is going to be the right length and that's going to fall where I want it. And then I just kind of shoved that up into my little tree until it was solid. I'm gluing down the little ball. I'm just spinning it around to make sure that it is centered. And then I dropped that dowel right down through the little ball. I'm putting some more hot glue in there to secure the dowel, and then I'm just going to hold it until it is nice and cool. All right, so now I have these foam snowflake stickers. They are white with glitter on them. The glitter is kind of iridescent. And I'm just going to make a little star for the top. So I've got 2 of these. I'm just peeling all of the paper away from the backing, and I'm going to be applying it to the tippy top of my little tree. And just peeling away the other one. I'm going to stick that one together with the other one so that all the stickiness is not hidden, but, well, it is hidden, but enclosed within the little star. And that's really it for this one. So let me know what you think. Okay, everybody, that's it for today. If you enjoyed the projects, remember to give me a big thumbs up, leave me a comment, let me know which one was your favorite, and until the next time, be well, be kind, and make it a great day. Thanks so much for watching. Take good care. Bye.